Welcome everyone. I want to welcome everyone to our Tuesday Uprooting Rejection workshop. My name is Anthony Baxter. I'll be your host. And tonight we're going to be going over a particular topic out of my book called Fear of Rejection. Fear of Rejection. How many of us have been rejected, and because of the rejection or the abandonment that was done to us as we grew up, the spirit of rejection has set in and has placed us in a place of fear. Now, the Bible tells us that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So the spirit of rejection opens the door to the spirit of fear. How many of you know that fear is not uh, how can I put it? Fear is something, as we see, God did not give us, but many of us are fearful of many different things. So in that, what we'll see is that the fear has a way of paralyzing us and preventing us from moving into the purpose that God had created us for or to accomplish as we are here on earth. Now, as a child experiences traumatic things in their upbringing, it can drive them into a protective mode. They become protective. When the people that are supposed to love you hurts you in a traumatic way, it can open the door to fear or the spirit of fear, and that rejection can come in as well. So, by the abandonment that has taken place in your life, it can produce that fear of rejection, or better yet, the spirit of fear of rejection. Now, in my book, I wrote this I wrote, individuals in protective mode live in fear of the future, and people, in some cases, they are petrified at the thought of meeting a person for the first time or asking a person out on a date. Have you ever seen a person that, they really, really like someone, but for some reason they just can't make the move to ask them out? Why is that? I'm glad you asked. Because they don't want to be rejected. They don't want to hear, well, no, they don't want to take the risk of hearing that. So what they do is they allow that passion or emotion of being with that person, or spending time with that person, they'll let it go in order not to be rejected, in order not to be rejected. And at the same time, uh, individuals that are dealing with this fear of rejection, they may pass up an opportunity of being with someone that really wants to be with them. You know how some women, they're not going to approach you, but they'll make it known that, hey, they're digging you. But see, in that, they still, even though they assume or feel like you're digging them, they don't want to be rejected, and vice versa with men and women, you know. So it goes on to say, growing up, not knowing what to expect from the people in their lives, leave them in a state of fear. What I mean by that is this: when the people in your life, your mother, your father, are unpredictable emotionally, when they're happy, everything is great. When they're not happy, everything is chaotic. So when they come in, you don't know what to expect. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you see. So when you're dealing with an upbringing as such, it brings a lot of confusion to a child, to a child. So again, it says growing up not knowing what to expect from the people in their lives leaves them in a state of fear. And as they grow up, they learn how to cope with their emotions in ways that are detrimental to their well-being. It's detrimental to the well-being. See, we put on these defensive mechanisms, and we learn how to cope with unhealthy things to make them healthy, but they're really not healthy. You see, they become detrimental. So you deal with individuals that have dealt with sexual abuse. That's a trauma. Okay. That's a trauma. So let's say it was something that was done by a mother or a father or an uncle or a cousin. That's detrimental. And then you don't have that protection. See, that sexual abuse is like the protection to protect you from it was not there. So that's an abandonment. Verbal abuse. That's one. Mental abuse, physical abuse. These are just some examples of some of the traumas that children go through in their upbringing that can put them in a place of abandonment to where the spirit of rejection sets in, that opens the door to a spirit of fear, to a spirit of fear. Now, as I said earlier, fear paralyzes and stops us from walking into our purpose. It's a paralyzing thing. Have you ever feared something? What do? You want to avoid it. You stick your head in the ground and you hope when you bring your head up that it's gone. Have you ever at a job, you're going to lunch, your boss says, after work, come see me. The rest of the day, all you thinking about is something negative. I'm getting fired. You already asking yourself, what am I going to do? I'm gonna go to get unemployment. I don't know what I'm gonna do about my car payment. All these type of things is going into your mind, and you're paralyzed. And it's like time's flying now. Because of the fear of what your boss is going to say. And when you walk into the office before you get off, you already prepared to find another job, but he says you've been doing a great job. We're going to give you a raise. You see, fear has a way of paralyzing us. It'll stop us from doing something that we need to do or want to do. Fear. If you are fearful of being rejected by people, there are many things you will not do. And if you press through that fear and do it anyway, you might find it difficult because your mind will often speak against your movement. It'll speak against your movement. It'll remind you of things, negative things that you heard most of your life. You see, and those negative things have a way of paralyzing you as an adult, just like it affected you as a child. Just like it affected you as a child. In my book, I wrote this pertaining to this subject. As a child becomes a young adult and steps out into the world, there are many things they will come against, and suffering from rejection and fear of it only makes it worse. Here's a list of areas that fear of rejection can affect. Although not everyone experiences every one of them, the fear of rejection diminishes their ability to succeed in a variety of personal and professional situations. These are some of the most common conditions I've come across in my own life dealing with the fear of rejection as a young adult myself. You see, I dealt with this. So my book is not just a lot of research, which I did do a lot of research, but it also is life experiences and life emotions and life things that I actually had gone through. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take a look at some of these uh, traits that are most common. These are the conditions, are the branches and leaves of the trunk of fear of rejection. So the first one is work. Work. In my book, I wrote this: the fear of rejection can impede progress in a person's career. It can manifest itself in many different ways, such as avoiding networking events or opportunities to meet new people, being unwilling to take risks or put oneself out there, and feeling excessively self conscious and anxious in social situations. These behaviors can lead to missed opportunities and stagnation in one's career. Additionally, the fear of rejection can cause people to settle for jobs that are not a good match for their skills or interests simply because they are afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of the unknown. So that's in your work environment. A person that's dealing with the fear of rejection, they're not going to put themselves out there. They're not going to risk being told no. They're not going to risk being told you're qualified or you're not qualified for this or that position. They're not going to put themselves out there, especially when it comes to social situations. You'll find individuals that are dealing with the spirit of rejection. They don't do too much networking because they're not really too talkative, because they don't want to be rejected. They don't want to be rejected. Number two is dating. Number two is dating. I wrote this. First dates can be a terrifying and incredible, intimate experience for anyone. But those who suffer from a fear of rejection are more likely to find themselves overwhelmed. They might not be able to focus on anything but what could go wrong. They may also have trouble communicating with their date as they overthink everything they say and obsess over their appearance. Obsess over their appearance. People who are afraid of rejection often try so hard to impress, to not seem boring, that they come across as unethical instead, leading to an ever higher chance of being rejected. So basically, in a person that's dealing with this fear of rejection, they overdo it. They overdo it. You see, they're so scared, and they assume that everything's going to go wrong, to where in their mind they set up what they're going to do. And how many of you know, if you just don't let it flow, you try to set things up, it's always going to crash. And then what happens is you do get rejected because you're not being you. You're being a false you, trying to uh, 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 trying to overcome something that you feel is going to happen. Make sense? How many of you have dealt with that? Because if you have, you might be dealing with the spirit of rejection. All right. Next, peer pressure. This is a big one. People who are afraid of being rejected are more susceptible to peer pressure. They want to fit in and be accepted. So they may go along with what others are doing, even if it goes against their own values. This can lead to risky behaviors such as using drugs and alcohol or engaging in other activities that could be harmful or illegal. You know, I've run across some women that were dealing with this fear of rejection. And, you know, I know of one woman that gotten pregnant because her friend hooked her up with a guy, and they were in the house together with the guys, and you know, they're over here kissing and doing their thing, her and the other guys over here, and she's like, why don't you go ahead? And so she went ahead because she didn't want to be rejected. And the next thing you know, she ended up getting pregnant with a child, based upon something she really didn't want to do. How many of us, in our little cliques growing up, did something that we really didn't want to do? Maybe went into a store and stole something because our friend said, hey, going to the store and grab this, and you didn't want to be rejected, or didn't want to look what they would call today weak, so you went ahead and did it anyhow. Okay. Peer pressure. There's a lot of individuals that have started using drugs and getting addicted based upon peer pressure. It's not something they wanted to do, but because they didn't want to be rejected, they did it and ended up becoming addicted. All right, here we go. We got another. Marriage. I wrote this. It is important to feel safe experiencing one's needs and boundaries in a marriage. Unfortunately, for someone who fears rejection, this can be difficult. Instead of being able to communicate openly, they may bottle up their feelings, leading to resentment. From this point, the marriage can begin to slowly deteriorate as they become increasingly unhappy. How many of you know communication is the key to any relationship, whether it be with your boss, whether it be with your best friend, your co-workers? It's just the key. And especially in marriage with your partner, you must let your partner know how things make you feel. But a person dealing with the spirit of rejection or the fear of rejection, they're not going to say a word. They're just going to bottle it up. And how many of you know if you don't speak on what you feel, that feeling is going to fester, it's going to grow. And then what's going to happen is it's going to return into a resentment. And then you have this resentment on top of that resentment on top of that resentment, and then another resentment. And the next thing you know, you're blowing up. Or somebody says the right things to you in the workplace, and you find yourself in a compromising position. That's marriage. If you ever been to counseling, the counselor will always say, well, do you guys talk about these things? Do you communicate? And it's usually one person that says, well, not really. And with that mediator, that counselor, they begin to express what they feel. Why? Because they feel somewhat safe having someone else there that can possibly help them express what they need to express. Because if you have a fear of rejection, the things that you want to say are not going to come out the way you want them to, because you're so fearful that you're just vomiting, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So having that other person there sometimes would assist the other individual in understanding what you're trying to say, and hopefully come to a resolution to it. All right. So next we have friendships. The number one symptom of the fear of rejection in friendships is people pleasing. Oh my God, people pleasing. People who are afraid of rejection will do anything to keep their friend, even if it means sacrificing their own needs. As a result, they might put up with toxic behavior, such as being treated poorly or consistently being made to feel like they are not good enough. This can lead to feelings of resentment and bitterness and a loss of self respect. It is also hard for them to say no, which often results in them being taken advantage of. Do you know someone that they talk to you and they say, you know, so and so makes me feel a certain way. They just take advantage of me and this, that, and the third. Well, it's not that one. I'm gonna say in some cases, it's not that they're taking advantage of you. It's the simple fact that you have not spoken up to let them know how you may feel. Like I say, if a person socks you in the mouth and they keep socking you in the mouth and you don't say nothing, they're gonna keep socking you in the mouth until you tell them, stop socking me in my mouth. So if an individual is making you feel less than, let that person know. Check this out. You making me feel like I'm beneath you, and I'm not beneath you. We friends, we're equal. Let them know how you feel. Because if you don't let them know how you feel, guess what? They're going to continue to do what they do because you have not told them anything different. So to them, it's okay. But to you, it's not. So let them know that it may be okay to you, but it's not okay to me. And if they can't receive that, then maybe that should not be your friend because they can't respect you in a way that you need to be respected. All right, next we have passive aggressiveness. Oh my God. Passive aggressiveness. Listen to this. This behavior can be a way of coping with fear of rejection. It involves indirect, covert aggression towards others, often in an attempt to get them to comply with your wishes or to punish them for not doing so without having to confront them directly. Manipulation. They can this can manifest in many ways, such as sulking, procrastinating, making snark comments, or giving the silent treatment. Passive aggressiveness is often destructive to relationships as it creates an atmosphere of tension and mistrust. Tension and mistrust. So these are those individuals that just can't come out directly and tell you what's really going on. They gotta shift it and twist it. They use the sulking and procrastination on things that maybe y'all supposed to do. Maybe they supposed to pick you up or something, and they just procrastinate, got you waiting around, making snarl comments and things like this. These things are very destructive to relationships. Why? Because if you're my friend, I should be able to talk to you and communicate with you about things that make me feel a certain way. And if you're my friend, you're going to look at it and say, okay, friend, you know what, you're right. Thanks for pulling my coattail, and vice versa, you know. But if there can be no communication, direct communication, sometimes some things you got to say to your friend, there's some hard things, but that's a friend. And they should be able to be open enough to receive what you're saying. And if it don't fly, just if it don't apply, let it fly. Okay. But if it do apply, take a look at it and humble yourself and get right with your friend if it's your friend. See, a lot of us got friends that ain't our friends. They just hang arounds. They hanging around until you run out of money. They hanging around till you run out of. You know what I'm saying? Or you stop doing, or stop doing. Most of us just need to find some real friends. Is really what's going on. But those are some of the common traits of individuals that are dealing with this fear of rejection. Fear of rejection is very common in the world today. We may not see it on a person. See, we like to dress ourselves up, make ourselves look all pretty, and put on the latest gear, and we dripping in this and that and the third. But we dealing with fear of rejection. Why? Because we feel all of this stuff is gonna make people like us, make people want to hang out with us. You know what I'm saying? So don't get it twisted. A lot of these cats walking around and a lot of these females walking around got their feet done, their hair done, the nails done, and got the drip on and whoop the whoop the whoop. Yeah, they look nice, but emotionally, where are they at? Emotionally, where are they at? So again, 2 Timothy verse 1 and 7 lets us know God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of sound mind. So if you're dealing with this fear of rejection, the enemy has found his way in to paralyze you from reaching your potential, preventing you from elevating, preventing you from meeting real friends, and preventing you from standing up for your own self. So what we need to do is we need to transition in our mind or renew our mind and remember that God didn't give me this fear. The enemy did. He gave me power and love and a sound mind. And that's what we need to be moving into in this day and age. Now, after every chapter, as I always say, we have questions. So this is question time, y'all. This is question time. Now, y'all go get my book, Uprooting Rejection. You see it there. Go to Amazon.com. Just type in Anthony Baxter, Uprooting Rejection. The book will pop up. Buy a copy. Buy a copy. I guarantee you it will help you uproot the spirit of rejection in your life, and it will break the generational curse, because some of us, our mama had it, our grandmama had it, and if we don't watch it, our kids could have it. So let's break that cycle and uproot the spirit they call rejection. First question: fear can become a significant problem because it will hold you back from blank and being blank in relationships. So you read the chapter, you can fill in the blanks. Number two, individuals in protection mode live in fear of the blank and blank. All right, it's in the book. Y'all get the book, read the book, answer the questions. Number three, how can fear of rejection affect one's life? How can the fear of rejection affect one's work life? Work life. And number four is, how can the fear of rejection affect one's dating life? It's in the book. Y'all read it. It's in the book. Number five, how can the fear of rejection affect one's marriage? So we got work life, dating life, and marriage. Okay. How can fear of rejection affect those areas of your life? Number six, people who are afraid of being rejected are less susceptible to peer pressure. True or false? And last but not least, number seven, when we operate with a sound mind given to us by God, we are no longer controlled or blank or the blank. It's in the book, but by the truth of God's word. By the truth of God's word. We're talking about fear of rejection, people. If this is something that you're dealing with, you have the ability to uproot it out your life. You have the ability to uproot it out your life. Get the book. There's many tools in here that you can begin to apply to your life to uproot that fear of rejection, as well as the spirit of rejection out of your life. Next week, we're going to be going over this chapter here is going to be deep, y'all. So if you got any friends that are in relationships and they dealing with this fear of rejection, they need to tune in next week, because we're going to be going after relationships and the fear of rejection. Relationships and the fear of rejection. We touched on a little bit of it in the previous chapter of, that we went over today, but we have a lot more when it comes to relationships. I'm talking about with your parents, with your cousins, with your nephews, with your job, with your husband, with your wife, with your kids, relationships, because that fear of rejection can affect on how you bring up your kids. It can affect how you bring up your kids. It can affect many areas of your life. So y'all tune in next week. Get some of this. And until then, y'all have a peaceful week. We'll be talking real soon. God bless you.